Step back and chart, Reyes. Let the adults work.
Understood. He needs airway stabilization, right now.
You are not touching that patient.
Then you do it. In the next 15 seconds, or I will.
They gave Sergeant Marcus Hale about 90 seconds to live, and the trauma bay smelled of antiseptic and the strained whine of a ventilator fighting a battle it was already losing. His face was wrong, badly swollen on one side from whatever had happened out on that highway, and the airway they needed had collapsed under the swelling like a road caving into a sinkhole. The monitor screamed a number no one wanted to say out loud. Dr. Pierce had both hands on the failing tube, and his jaw locked tight. And for the first time in his gilded career, the great trauma chief of Balboa had run clean out of moves. Nobody looked at the night nurse in the corner. Nobody knew that the quietest person in that room had done this exact thing before, under fire, with sand in the wound. Her name was Dana Reyes, and almost no one at Balboa Naval Hospital knew a single true thing about her. She came in on the night shifts, the ones the others traded away, and she tied her hair back without checking a mirror, and she moved through the trauma bays calm the way deep water is calm, a stillness that made people uneasy in a way they couldn't name. She was not cold. The younger nurses thought she was shy. The older ones thought she was hiding something. Only the second part was true. What none of them knew, what she had gone to real trouble to keep them from knowing, was that Dana Reyes had spent the better part of a decade keeping men alive in places that never showed up in any newspaper. She had been a corpsman attached to a Navy SEAL team, a special operations medic, which is a plain way of saying she had learned her trade in the dark, on the ground, with the worst wounds a human body can suffer, and none of the equipment a hospital takes for granted. She had knelt in mud and in dust, and once in the bilge of a boat taking on water, and she had done, with a blade and her own two hands, the things that hospitals reserve for surgeons and operating rooms. She had left all of that behind, folded it up and put it away, the way you fold a uniform you're not sure you have the right to wear anymore. She had come to Balboa to be ordinary, to hand out medications and change dressings and go home to an apartment where nothing exploded and no one died on her watch. She wanted the quiet. She had earned the quiet. The trouble was that Balboa was a military hospital in San Diego, and the war has a way of following its people home. Dr. Pierce ran the trauma service, and Dr. Pierce had built his entire self around the fact that he ran the trauma service. He was good, genuinely good, and he knew it, and knowing it had cost him something over the years that he could no longer feel the absence of. He wore his authority like a starched coat. He spoke in sentences that left no room for an answer. He had decided, within about a week of Dana Reyes arriving on his ward, that the new night nurse was a problem. She was too watchful, too still. She noticed things a nurse had no business noticing, and worse, she was right about them. The first friction had been small. On one of her early shifts, she had glanced at a chart and seen a chest tube reading that didn't sit right with her, and instead of making a scene, she had quietly walked it to the charge nurse and let the system fix it. The patient was fine, but the order had carried Pierce's name, and when he found out the new nurse had been the one to flag it, he did not thank her. He found her the next evening restocking a cart and asked, loud enough for the whole corridor to hear, whether she'd like him to slow down and explain the medicine to her. She had looked at him for a moment, just a moment, and said, evenly, that she was fine. Then she went back to her work. He never forgave her for how even her voice had stayed. So Dana did what she had always done in a new place full of difficult people. She watched, she said nothing. She learned. She learned the rhythm of the ward and the song of the monitors, and which residents panicked and which ones froze. She learned that under all his polish, Pierce was a man terrified of the one thing he could not control, which was losing. And she kept her own history sealed tight, because she had learned a long time ago that the truth is worthless until the exact moment it can save a life, and dangerous every moment before. The night it broke open began like any other. The call came in around 2 in the morning. A vehicle rollover on the interstate, a single Marine ejected, severe facial and head trauma, inbound fast. Dana heard the words facial trauma, and something old and cold turned over in her chest. A thing she thought she had put to sleep for good. She did not let it show on her face. She snapped on gloves and moved to the bay. They brought him in fast, a knot of paramedics and urgent voices, and the first thing Dana saw was the dog tags. They had spilled out of his collar and lay across his sternum, rising and falling, with a breathing that was already turning to work. She read them without meaning to. Hale, Marcus, his blood type, his faith, a man reduced, for the moment, to the small metal facts of himself. He was young. They were always young. The right side of his face had taken the worst of it, and the swelling was already blooming purple and vast, marching up from his jaw toward his eye. His breathing had that sound, that wet, whistling, laboring sound, that told Dana exactly where this was going, long before any machine did. Pierce took the head of the bed and started to work. He was fast and he was skilled, and for a few minutes, it looked like skill would be enough. He called for the tube. He got the blade in, tilted, looked, searched for the opening he needed to thread it through, and the swelling closed the door in his face. There is a moment in a losing airway that everyone in the room feels at the same time, a moment when the air stops being something you manage and becomes something you are chasing and cannot catch. Dana felt it arrive. She watched the number on the monitor start its slide, the oxygen saturation peeling downward, 90, 85, 80. Each number a step closer to a floor no one comes back from unbroken. Pierce tried again. His hands were still steady, but his voice had climbed half an octave. Suction. More suction. I can't. The landmarks are gone. Try a smaller tube, someone said. There's no room for any tube. He pulled back, breathing hard, and for one long second, the great chief of Balboa simply stared at the compromised airway in front of him, with the look of a man watching a door swing shut. 78, 74. Dana had already moved. She didn't decide to, not the way you decide things. 6 years of training decided for her, the part of her that lived below thought, the part that had done this before with the world coming apart around her. She stepped to the side of the bed, and her fingers found his throat, not fumbling, not searching, going straight to the landmarks the way you go to a light switch in your own dark house. The notch of the thyroid cartilage, the soft give of the membrane just beneath it, the one small window in a failing airway that can be reached through the front of the neck when every other road is closed. He needs a surgical airway, she said. Her voice was low and flat and absolutely certain, and it cut through the noise of the room like a blade through water. Right now, he has maybe 40 seconds. Pierce's head came up. Get back to your cricothyrotomy, she said. He needs a crick. There's no time to move him, and no other way in. Give me a scalpel and a 6-0 tube. For one heartbeat, the whole room hung suspended. A nurse does not say those words. A nurse does not stand at the throat of a dying Marine and call for a blade. Pierce's face went through something complicated and fast. Outrage, disbelief, and under both of them, naked and unwelcome, the knowledge that he had nothing left to offer and the clock had nearly run out. 70, 66. You are not touching that patient, Pierce said. Dana looked at him across the gurney, across the dying man between them, and she did not raise her voice. Then you do it, she said. Right now, in the next 15 seconds. Or I will, and you can address it in the morning. He didn't move. That was the whole answer, and they both heard it. He didn't move because he couldn't, because the one procedure that could save this Marine was the one his hands had never actually performed on a living body, only read about, only watched. And she could see it in his eyes, the terrible arithmetic of a proud man realizing the proud thing and the right thing had just walked in opposite directions. 62. Betadine and a scalpel, Dana said to the nearest tech. And something in the way she said it made the young man obey before he'd decided to. The blade was in her hand. She didn't hesitate. There is no hesitating. Hesitation is its own kind of loss. She steadied the throat with her left hand, found the membrane with her thumb, and made the cut. A small, controlled horizontal opening, exactly as deep as it needed to be, and not 1 millimeter more. She turned the blade, opened the space, and slid the tube home in a single motion that looked, to everyone watching, like something out of a different world. For a sickening half-second, nothing. Then the chest rose. The bag in the tech's hands filled the Marine's lungs through the new opening, and the chest rose, and rose again, and the number on the monitor stopped falling. It hung, it shivered, and then, like a man breaking the surface after going under, it began to climb. 64, 70, 78, 85. The awful whistling was gone, replaced by the clean mechanical push of air going where air needed to go. Nobody said anything. The whole room stood frozen around the impossible thing that had just happened, and the only sound was the beautiful, steady rhythm of a man who was going to live. Dana secured the tube with tape, checked it twice, and stepped back. Her gloves were stained to the wrist. Her face had not changed at all. "He's stable," she said quietly. "Get him to CT and get neurosurgery down here. The airway will hold." Pierce was staring at her. They were all staring at her, and into that silence, before anyone could speak, the doors of the bay banged open and the Marines arrived. There were 4 of them, Hale's unit, still in the dusty utilities of men who had rushed straight from wherever the news had found them. They filled the doorway, and the biggest of them, a staff sergeant with a voice built for parade grounds, started to demand to know where his Marine was, and then stopped. Because they had all seen the stained gloves on the nurse, and the tube in their brother's throat, and the number on the monitor climbing back toward life. Marines know the difference between the doctor who owns the room and the person who just saved someone. They looked at Pierce, standing empty-handed at the head of the bed, and then they looked at Dana Reyes, and they understood. That should have been the end of it. It was not the end of it. Because Pierce, once the immediate fear had drained out of him and his heartbeat had come back down to something survivable, did what frightened proud men do. He went looking for the rules she had broken instead of the life she had saved. By morning, there was a formal complaint on the desk of the chief of the medical staff. A nurse had performed an invasive surgical procedure outside her scope of practice. It did not matter that the patient was breathing. It did not matter that the alternative had been a dead Marine in an emergency bay. It mattered to Pierce that a nurse had reached where he could not and let the whole room watch her do it. They pulled Dana into a conference room the next evening, a panel of administrators with careful faces, and they asked her to explain herself. She sat very straight in her chair, hands folded, and she did not defend herself the way they expected. She did not argue about the emergency exception. She simply told them the truth she had been keeping folded up for 2 years. "Before I was a nurse," she said, "I was a corpsman. Special operations. I was attached to a SEAL team for 6 years." She let that sit in the room a moment. "I have performed that exact procedure 11 times before last night. 9 of those men lived. I did not learn it from a textbook, and I did not learn it in an emergency room. I learned it in places where the nearest hospital was 300 miles away and there was no one else. When I put that blade to Sergeant Hale's throat, my hands knew exactly what they were doing. They have always known." The room was very quiet. "You could have told us," an administrator said, "when you were hired." "No," Dana said, and there was no bitterness in it, only something tired and honest. "If I'd told you, I'd have spent 2 years being the SEAL medic instead of a nurse. I didn't want to be a story. I wanted to work." She looked at the folded hands in her lap. "I'm sorry it came out this way. I'm not sorry I cut." Pierce was in that room too, and he had come prepared to press the complaint, to talk about protocol and liability and the sanctity of the chain of command. But something had shifted in him overnight, something he would have denied if you'd named it. He had lain awake seeing that number fall. He had felt, in his own steady hands, the exact moment he'd had nothing left. And he had watched a woman he'd spent weeks dismissing do the one thing he could not, without a flicker of arrogance, without once making it about herself. When they turned to him and asked whether he wished to proceed with the complaint, Pierce was quiet for a long moment. "No," he said, "I do not. He looked at
I have
Dana,
to tell you
and it
something.
visibly cost him, every syllable of it.
Tell me.
Sergeant Hale is alive because of what she did. I could not have done it. She could,
I
and
wish I
she
had
did,
better news
and
for
she
you,
did it
but we've
correctly.
exhausted
He
every
paused.
possible
I'd have
avenue.
lost him. She knew that before I did. That was as close to an apology as a man like Pierce could come. And Dana, who had spent her whole life around men like Pierce, understood it for exactly what it was, and gave him a small nod that let him keep his dignity. The complaint died in that room. It was never spoken of again. Marcus Hale spent 9 days in the intensive care unit and another 3 weeks after that in a bed on the surgical ward, his face slowly returning to itself under the careful hands of the reconstructive team. The airway Dana had placed healed to a thin, pale line at the base of his throat, a scar he would carry the rest of his life, the mark of the 40 seconds he never knew he'd live through. In those first days, before the tube came out and he had any voice at all, he could only watch, and he watched her. Every night she came to check the airway line, leaning in close with the penlight, her hands doing their careful work at his throat, and every night his eyes followed her, the way a man follows the one face in a room he cannot yet place, but knows he owes something to. Once, when she finished and moved to go, he lifted 2 fingers off the blanket, barely, all he could manage, and touched the back of her wrist, held it there a second. She stopped. She understood. She turned her hand and closed it briefly over his, and neither of them needed to say the thing that passed between them. Then she checked his monitor and went on to the next bed, and he lay there in the dark learning her name the only way he could, by the shape of her steadiness. His unit came every day, and the staff came to expect them the way you expect the tide. Marines rotated through in their off hours, sat by his bed, brought him terrible coffee and worse jokes, and never once let him wake up alone. And every one of them, before they left, would find the night nurse wherever she was on the ward and say some version of the same quiet thing. Thank you, he's ours, thank you.
Thank you so
Dana
much,
never
Dana.
made anything of
You
it.
saved my life.
She checked his vitals and adjusted
No
his
problem.
lines, and treated him exactly like every other patient, which was to say with a steadiness that asked for nothing back. But Marcus Hale, once the tube came out and he could speak again, once his family had flown in and gone home reassured, once he understood in full what had been done to save him, Marcus Hale did not forget. Marines do not forget. It is written into them deeper than any oath. He made some calls. He was not the only one. The day Dana Reyes was scheduled to leave that ward for a routine transfer to another unit, she came onto the floor for her last shift and found something waiting for her that stopped her cold in the doorway. They were lined up in the corridor outside the room where it had all begun, not just Hale's Marines. A SEAL team, 6 men in dress uniform, standing at rigid attention, their ribbons bright under the fluorescent lights. Word travels in that world along channels no hospital administrator will ever see. Someone had learned who the quiet night nurse used to be. Someone had made sure the right people knew that a corpsman who had once carried men out of the dark had, 2 years later and half a world away, reached into a dying Marine's throat and pulled him back. Marcus Hale stood at the front of them in a wheelchair, his face healing, his own dress blues pressed and perfect, the dog tags back where they belonged. And when Dana stepped into that corridor, still in her plain scrubs, still not fully understanding, the senior man called them to attention.
Attention to
6 SEALs and 1 Marine came to attention as one, and they saluted her. Dana Reyes, who had faced the worst things the world can do to a body without flinching, who had steadied her hands in that trauma bay without once faltering, stood in that hospital corridor and felt her composure break at last. Her eyes filled. She brought her own hand up slowly, the old motion returning to her arm like it had never left, and she returned the salute to the men who had crossed a country to give it to her. Nobody spoke. Nobody had to. The whole thing lasted maybe 10 seconds, and it said everything that could be said. Marcus Hale wheeled himself forward and took her hand in both of his. "Doc," he said, "because that is what they call the ones who save them. Always, forever, Doc. I didn't know I was gone. They told me after. 40 seconds. He held her hand tighter. You didn't even know my name. I knew it, Dana said softly. It was on your tags. He laughed, and it turned unsteady halfway through. and he pressed something into her palm and closed her fingers around it. It was one of his dog tags on its chain, warm from his skin. "So you don't forget me either," he said. She never did. Dr. Pierce watched the whole thing from the end of the corridor, and for once in his life, he did not step into the center of the scene. He stood at the edge of it and understood that some things are larger than the man who runs the trauma service, and that he had been in the presence of one of them, and had almost missed it entirely. Dana Reyes finished her shift. She transferred, as scheduled, and went on being ordinary, or as ordinary as a person like that can ever be. But she kept the tag. She wore it under her scrubs where no one could see it, next to the folded-up history she had never wanted to tell. And on the nights when the work was hard, she would feel the small weight of it against her chest, and remember the 6 men who had crossed a country to stand at attention for the quiet nurse who had never asked to be seen.